If you are interested in starting a podcast like us, Anchor is a great way to start. It's free, it can automatically distribute your podcast to other platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can record and edit directly on Anchor, and you can make money without any minimum requirements. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. This is why we chose Anchor as our first audio platform. Download the Anchor app or visit anchor.fm to get started. Again, download the Anchor app or visit anchor.fm to get started. Hey guys, welcome to the fifth episode of Law of Ball. I'd like to remind our listeners that we are on audio platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If it's easier for you to listen on there, you should check us out on those platforms. But anyway, we're on our way to the conference finals. Only one series left, Clippers and Nuggets, which could end in a few hours. So let's just talk about that series first. What are your predictions on this game and your overall thoughts?
I think that the Clippers got this game. I mean, they're just a much better team matchup wise. Paul George has been playing better, and Kawhi's been consistently a great player. I don't really think that the Nuggets have what it takes, but who knows? But I think that there's not really a chance that the Clippers lose the whole series.
I think the only chance Nuggets win this game or in the series in general is if their role players really pop off because Jamal Murray can't carry the team, obviously. Jokic, I mean, he's always been doing great, but he's not enough to beat a whole team with Kawhi and Paul George.
Yeah, I think Jamal Murray has gotten like less efficient in that Jazz series where he popped off. I think he's like come back down to earth a bit. But overall, like the Nuggets' entire offense is just Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic pick and rolls. And like Michael Porter Jr. said this in a press conference interview. He said that the Nuggets need to make their offense like more like inclusive of other players instead of just spamming the PNR. What are your thoughts on like what Michael Porter Jr. said?
Oh yeah, didn't Michael Porter Jr. say something about like how everybody else needs to step up?
He said, I think he said that the Nuggets need to make their offense to where other role players are able to also get shots, since the main offense is just a PNR with Murray and Jokic.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he has some truth to it, but I do think that Jokic and Murray are by far the best players, and then the pick and roll between them is really like their path to victory. But I mean, I guess they could incorporate role players too.
Yeah, I agree with what Kyron said. Like Michael Porter Jr., he showed that he can be a scorer, but I think there's a reason why they're only incorporating Jamal Murray and Jokic in the offense because they are the two best offensive players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Michael Porter Jr. hasn't been that far behind them. He's been great. I watched part of the last game where Michael Porter Jr. hit a clutch. I think it was a clutch three at the end when they managed to like, secure the win.
Mm-hmm.
So there are good other players on the Nuggets, but the best two are definitely Murray and Jokic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
also like to know Murray's
when
shooting
the
below 30% right now in the series overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so yeah, he definitely needs to fix that if he wants to make it out this series.
Mm-hmm. He was such a draft steal. What did he go, like 20 or something?
He had all that hype before, but then he got injured, right?
He had some bad injuries because he
Remember
got
all those
like,
highlights? Those highlights
yeah,
on
in
TV?
high school.
Yeah.
Him and Bagley were supposed to be like the best like NBA players ever.
No, it's Trey and Luca are the
Mm-hmm.
best from that draft.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know how Luka fell to third. I thought he was bona fide one, maybe two, depending on the team's overall fit. But there's no way Bagley should have been drafted before Doncic.
See, that draft was super strong though. I really liked Bagley. I really liked Aiden, and of course, I really liked Luca. Really liked Trey. Who went four? Was that like Darius Garland or something?
Um, Let me see. Jaren Jackson Jr. Trey J.
Oh,
Oh,
he's
he's
great
not
too.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
he has
top
a.
five is like one of the best ever.
Can't wait to see what they do in the future too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Marvin Bagley's the weakest out of the top five.
Yeah. He's still pretty good though.
He doesn't fit on the Kings though. I think he should leave.
Yeah, Rockets should trade for him.
Well, speaking of the Rockets, well, their series just ended last night in terrible fashion. Westbrook dropped a, a whopping 10 points on the Lakers. Harden actually wasn't that bad overall for a game five, but they got blown out.
Honestly, just sad. I think they should fire Mike D'Antoni. Well, he's going to leave. I think he's a great coach. What the Rockets are doing is not working. I think that the Westbrook trade, if they're going to run this small ball, efficient 3-and-D, Morey ball offense, Westbrook is not the player for that. He's an inefficient scorer. He can't shoot the three, and he's just completely inefficient. His role should be running up and down the court, playing good defense, and occasionally driving to the hoop, maybe being a facilitator. But he just wasn't a great fit for the Rockets, and they would have been better trading him off for like an overpriced big like Horford or something.
I think this series proved that Westbrook is one of the lowest IQ superstars in the NBA right now by far. He makes terrible decisions, and I think this series also proved that running small ball the whole entire game isn't a smart idea. As like even the Warriors, they had their dominant small ball first with Harrison Barnes and then with KD, but they still had players like Bogut, Pachoya, David West, JaVale McGee to come in and be a big body in the beginning of a game. So like doesn't have to guard Anthony Davis or whoever for the entire game, but he can for the final stretch where the buckets are most crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And like with Warriors small ball, you had guys like KD and Draymond who had size and was able to help defend the paint. Unlike the Rockets, where you have a 6'5" PJ Tucker and a power forward in Rocco.
It just wasn't a great. It's not going to work out. Honestly, I think they need to do some blowing it up. But they have really great pieces. Honestly, Harden is obviously amazing, but their role players, Covington, PJ Tucker, not Eric Gordon, but the rest of their bench, House, McLemore, etc. They're all really, really great. I think they just need to trade Westbrook for another piece. But I don't know how they can do that.
But the Warriors also were never as small as the Rockets were. The Warriors always had when they had Harrison Barnes, he was like a 6'8", 6'9" body. Iguodala and Clay are big like shooting guards. They're both like 6'7", and Draymond is like 6'7" also. But for the Rockets, they have like Eric Gordon at small forward. He's only like 6'4". PJ Tucker is about like 6'5". Rocco is the only person like above that 6'6", 6'8" area. So like they're extremely small, and I don't know how. Like I think the thing that happened with Daniel House might have like potentially been a mental distraction for them because they did look out of it in the final games. They just didn't seem mentally there. I think what House did was like it was the worst thing that could have happened in that moment. They were already down like 2-1, and then the whole House thing just distracted them.
And he's a crucial player. He was playing really great in that series, and then he just had to decide to mess it all up. And I hate to be that guy, but I honestly think that Harden needs to start stepping it up in these playoff games. He shows in the regular season that he is one of the most dominant forces in the NBA, and I don't really see him trying to like take charge. Obviously, it's good basketball IQ to defer when you're being doubled and whatnot, but I think he could just play harder. And people say that his defense has improved lately, but I still see plays where he has extremely low effort on defense, and he's not really looking like he's in the game.
Yeah, even sometimes on offense when I watch the games, James Harden doesn't really look checked in. Like he looks out of rhythm, and he's not helping the offense as much as he could be.
He doesn't do anything off ball.
He needs to move off the ball. Like Steph Curry is a great shooter, but when he passes the ball, he's still running around, causing the defenders to like off-ball screens or whatever, and it causes like confusion in the defense. Harden, as soon as he passes it, he's just standing there and not moving around. So it's easier for the defender to like help off of Harden if necessary.
Their offense makes no sense. It's literally just like, I mean, I think that the taking 3-pointers and layups is a really great way to play basketball, and that's how the Warriors play basketball. So I don't really see why everybody hates on it with the Rockets with their small ball. They're literally just trying to replicate the Warriors who changed basketball and were the most dominant
difference for
team.
the Warriors is that they have the two of like the top 5 best shooters of all time, depending on how you argue it. And they still took mid-ranges occasionally. Like we had Kevin Durant, he's a great 3-point shooter, but he also takes some mid-range. Sean Livingston was a great mid-range shooter. Like the Rockets completely take out the mid-range at all. Like in the Warriors-Rockets series, they both primarily took threes and layups, and they were actually similar in both of those categories. When you look at it, they made about like 93s, made similar layups. But then those few mid-range that KD took that the Rockets didn't, it adds up. Like they only took a few more mid-range, but it adds up and it accumulates, and that's what gave the Warriors the edge in the 2018 series.
The Rockets need to stop acting like they have a bunch of great shooters because they don't. PJ Tucker is like a corner 3 specialist who doesn't make most of his corner 3s. Eric Gordon just sucks. His shot is bad. He makes like not enough 3s. Harden is not efficient at the 3-point line. I don't know what he's shooting like percentage wise. I think it's under 40%.
Harden's never shot above 40%, I'm pretty sure, from three.
Harden's never shot above 40%. There's no reason why his game should be threes. He's one of the strongest, most skilled offensive players in the NBA. He should be driving to the hoop and taking the occasional step back three. But the 3-and-D ball doesn't make sense when you're not a good three-point shooting team and you're not a great defensive team. They have the pieces to be very elite, but I don't see Coach Mike D'Antoni's vision.
I think Harden is kind of overrated at shooting, like just my opinion, because he gets a lot of points and makes a lot of threes, but a lot of it is just because of volume shooting, not necessarily like actual accuracy, but he just takes so much that it eventually goes in. He also, but I do have to admit that he does take harder threes, but at the end of the day, it's not an efficient shot to take to continuously take step back threes over and over again. It's also bad for your legs. Like if you keep using your legs to take those step backs, at the end of the game, you're gonna eventually tire out at that point, especially when you're running small ball.
I think that he should be shooting, and he should be shooting a lot. I think he should have actually shot more this series, but he needs to think more of, he's such a skilled offensive player. He's probably, I think, the most skilled offensive player in the entire NBA.
Kevin Durant,
besides maybe KD. I was going to
Steph
say
Curry?
KD. I think he's more offensively skilled than Steph Curry because he's like more like three-dimensional. He can drive to the basket better than Steph Curry can, and he uses his body in such amazing ways. But he can't. He just doesn't play smartly. When he brings up the ball, and as soon as he gives it out of his hands, he steps back. He goes to like almost half court and just stands there. He just stands there. It makes no sense, and it's just bad for the Rockets.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I want to really address the offensive movement the Rockets have because they run 5 out, but like when Harden isos, there's zero ball movement, and like most of the time when Harden does iso, if he doesn't take a shot, it makes it a really hard situation for him to pass the ball because there's no movement and there's no one's open. So it's like it creates no rhythm for the Rockets offense.
And Westbrook drives to the basket a lot, and ideally he would kick it out to a corner three for like all of their corner three specialists. But Westbrook doesn't kick it out ever. He just bricks it when he's like 3 feet away from the basket. He doesn't pass enough. Like Harden, I think, passed too much in this series. Harden kept on like deferring and giving the ball up. And that's great if Harden moves off ball to try to get the ball again because he's the Rockets' best offensive player. But he just stands there.
Well, I don't know if I'm biased or not, but I just give the edge to Curry back to that conversation because of his ability to move off the ball and create more spacing. Like, but I guess on the ball, maybe you could say Harden's better. But either way, in Game 4 when Harden shot 2 for 11, usually I would like meme it like this dude shot 2 for 11, but I honestly think he should have took more shots even if he missed it. He needs to be that leader for them. He needs to take at least 15 to 20 shots a game. Even if he misses it, he needs to be mentally in the game where he's trying to create the best shot possible for like himself. He is the best shot creator on the team. There's no reason for him only to have 11 shots no matter what the situation is, unless he's like being like triple teamed or something.
He just seemed very discouraged the past few games, and I honestly don't get it. He should just keep. If the Rockets lose, it's his fault. He needs to try to make them win. He can't just be deferring because he's by far the best player on that team. By far. It's not even a competition. Westbrook is not that great. Honestly, he plays really, really hard, and I like him as a role player, as a second or third best player. But Harden should be bringing up the ball. Harden should be moving off ball. Harden should be taking the majority of the shots because he's really that great. And we see it in the regular season, but we don't see it in the playoffs.
Westbrook took more shots than Harden did this series. Just like throw it out there.
Yeah, which is stupid because Westbrook sucks. Westbrook is so bad on offense. Westbrook cannot make a single shot. He's literally like, he plays with a lot of power, and on the fast break, he's really good. And driving to the hoop, he's also really powerful. But Harden is one of the greatest offensive players of all time. I honestly think he's up there with MJ and Kobe in terms of skill level. But do you know why the reason that Curry is a better offensive player than Harden is because Harden doesn't actually execute on it. He has so much potential, but he's not really doing it right. And I guess he could figure that out later in his career, but the time's honestly coming. He's like 30 or something, 29.
Just 31.
He's 31. He's got like 2 years left in his prime. He needs to make it happen now.
Honestly, like I don't like James Harden that much as a player because of the team he plays on, but I hope he can eventually reach playoff success because I don't want him to become one of those players that may may like be forgotten throughout history, like a player like Charles Barkley, who's great, but just never had any playoff success to the point where like no one talks about him as one of the best players. He's a bona fide top five player currently. You could argue he's top three if you want to between Curry, Kawhi, and Harden. I think they're like on the same level. You could argue he's top three, and he's great. Like he's honestly a great offensive player, and I want to see him have success, especially this year when the Warriors were in the playoffs. So I wanted to see the Rockets go to the finals and play like the Heat or Celtics and him potentially win his first ring ever. But it just didn't work out.
Do y'all remember January 2019 when Harden had that stretch of just averaging like 42 throughout a whole month?
Yeah, when
And
he had
then,
all those.
and then when he averaged like 36 throughout the year. I watched almost all of those games, and when he dropped 60 in Madison Square Garden, when he dropped 60 on the Spurs, you see those games and you see that that is honestly throughout that stretch in January 2019, besides 2018 playoff LeBron, I think that's like the best player I've ever seen play. Personally, I know that MJ and Kobe are probably better than him, but that's just
Curry.
No, I think Harden was better because he was creating his own shot. He was surrounded by players that weren't that great, and he was just really taking it into his own hands and executing and winning those games. And that's when the Rockets were just pretty amazing during that stretch. And then it falls apart in the playoffs every year because he's not confident enough to actually maintain that level of play.
Well, the interesting thing is in 2019 when Harden was going on that stretch, Kobe on like that ESPN show with I think with Cole and them. Kobe commented that he didn't think that Harden would ever win a championship because of that style where he's like doing everything for them. I think he said something like that about how Harden is doing everything and the opponent can just zero in on him, and then after that the Rockets just fall apart.
I don't really agree with that because Harden is also one of the greatest playmakers in the NBA right now. You see his passes. You see Harden does so much more than score. People act like he's a one-dimensional scorer. He led the
He's a
league
good
in
playmaker.
steals. He led the league in
He's a good
steals.
playmaker.
He's one of the best people assisting people in the NBA. He makes great passes and he's a good playmaker and he's decent on defense when he tries. He has the potential to be better than LeBron, to be better than Kawhi. He just needs to make it happen.
I dislike both of the Rockets' trades this year, both Chris Paul and Clint Capella. I know that they wanted to go small ball, but they didn't have a second big man behind Capella that could have came up and been like, okay, I'll be that 7 foot body for the Rockets when necessary. They have no one there. I like Rocco is one of the best bench role players that you can get out there, and because he's such a textbook 3-and-D player. But when you don't have a big man behind like to guard the paint, rim protect, especially with so many good big men nowadays that can even stretch out like Kristaps and all those players. I think you need that body.
Woj bomb right now. Mike D'Antoni will not return to the franchise next year. So Mike D'Antoni's out.
And I like that move. His game plan is good in the regular season, but it's just so repetitive when you do it in the playoffs. Teams already figured you out and they know how to beat that style of play.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with that. He needs to. Well, I don't know who he is. Their future coach needs to. First of all, they need to get a big. I don't know if y'all watch, but back in previous years, I thought that Capella before 2019 was actually really great. I thought that their other sort of bigs that they ran, like Nene and whatnot, were really good and really big contributors to the Rockets offense. And I think that like the pick and roll between Harden and a center is actually a really good form of playmaking, and it kind of allows for more ball movement because center can then kick it out. I thought that the Rockets offense was better under that. Like the 2018 Rockets offense was the best.
Yeah. I agreed with the Capella trade, but I knew that we were going to miss the essence of Capella on our offense because the pick and roll with Harden and Capella was almost nearly unstoppable because you had to stop one another.
Almost every other year when the Rockets are eliminated, I laugh at them because like just how it ends. But this year it's just so sad. Harden's already like 31, 32. This is the 5th year in a row they've been just thrown out the playoffs. They've been a second round exit these past few years. I don't know what else they can really do at this point. Westbrook is like 40 million plus. No team is gonna want to take that contract on. Harden is probably here to stay for the rest of his contract at least, and maybe the rest of his career. I don't know like what else they can do unless they can manage to attach some picks to the Westbrook trade or something. But they already threw a lot of picks in that Chris Paul trade.
Chris Paul trade was the dumbest thing ever as it happened. I think that even when Chris Paul had that bad season, I thought that Chris Paul wasn't much worse than Westbrook. There's no reason they should be giving up those picks for an even worse contract.
I think after the Lakers series lost, a lot of Rockets fans have lost faith in Daryl Morey because he did throw out pretty much the future of the Rockets, and now you have a $40 million contract in cap space that you can't get rid of. So it's a really hard situation for the Rockets to get out of, especially when they have a lot of players that are aging. Like PJ Tucker is 33, 34. Eric Gordon's in his 30s. Westbrook's in his 30s. Harden's in his 30s. Rocco's about every 30. Your youngest player is probably like Austin Rivers, who's like 25. So, a tough spot.
Nah, I still really like Morey. He's proven himself to be one of the smartest GMs in the NBA. Not necessarily
smart. Analytically, he definitely had a smart way to play basketball.
Just think of the role players that he accumulates: Covington, PJ Tucker, and then basically their entire bench, like Max Morehouse, etc. They're some of the best role players in the NBA.
But that Westbrook trade is going to haunt them for a few years now.
Yeah. Oh, and obviously the Harden trade was like the smartest thing ever.
Like when you have a player like Harden, you need to put your offense specifically around him. He's like a LeBron type player where you need to build your team around him, and his play style requires people to be able to either be a big man like Capella who could catch lobs when Harden needed him to, or to be able to kick it out to shooters when he's being like heavily guarded. But then when your second best player is someone that doesn't know how to shoot and he's declining, his athleticism is going to keep getting worse, especially with his injury, and he's getting older. He's on the wrong side of 30 at this point. I don't know like how Westbrook is how his career is gonna go, especially since he doesn't have like the IQ. Like Derrick Rose, he got injured, he came back, he developed his 3-point shot ever, and he's a much smarter basketball player than Westbrook is. I don't know how Westbrook's career is gonna like continue after this.
In 2019, I thought that the Rockets should have traded for Butler and one of their bad contracts, which would either be Al Horford or Tobias Harris for the Sixers in exchange for Chris Paul and Eric Gordon, and then just like 2 picks.
They did try to get Butler, but the Timberwolves rejected it. The Rockets offered 4 first-round picks to the Timberwolves for Jimmy B, and they rejected it.
You mean the Sixers?
No, they offered him when he was still in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, they should have just got Butler, honestly. I've always really liked Butler, and I thought he would have been a great fit for the Rockets. Isn't he from Houston?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
Well, they're near Houston, I think. I don't know if he is exactly from Houston, but he's near the area.
Mhm. Woodlands or something.
But so we spent this much time on the Rockets, but what do you think this says about the Lakers being like a lot of people thought that this would be a bad matchup for them. They took them out in a gentleman's sweep, won 4 in a row after dropping game 1, just like they did last round. What do you think this says about them?
I think that they just proved to be a really great team. LeBron is the best playoff performer in the NBA, and in the playoffs, he's going to be the best player on any team. Anthony Davis has showed that he's just really elite as like a second player. He might not be good enough to like really carry the offense, but he's a great piece, especially when teams are going smaller and they're going a little bit bigger. And I think their role players like Caruso and Rondo have also proved to be really great.
Yeah, I think
you can go first.
I think AD is really playing that Kyrie role that LeBron used to have on the Cavs, and it's really working out for them. They have a great bench and everything. I think it's pretty obvious. Everyone thinks that the Lakers have a really big shot at the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, Caruso's been like a meme among NBA circles, but he's actually really good now. Like I think he's he's their third best player. He's consistently their third best player. But I think the Lakers have lucked out in terms of their bracket, because the first series they played against the Blazers, although Nurkic is a great center on offense, he's not gonna stop anyone on defense, especially not someone like Anthony Davis. Hassan Whiteside has fell off defensively since that 2016 season where he was just blocking everyone. Then this series, obviously the Rockets didn't have a center, and I guess I don't know how Zubac. He's not like a dominant big defensive big man, but he might put up a better fight. And whoever they play against in the finals, whether it's Tice or Adebayo, they might have lucked out in terms of like their road to the championship. There's no like dominant defensive big man remaining, other than I guess Adebayo may be able to put a fight in Tice. I don't know how good his defense is now. He did win DPOY overseas, but I think the Lakers did luck out in terms of their matchups.
Yeah, I think Lakers winning the chip for sure.
I mean, what do you think the Western Conference is going to go to? 6 or 7, do you think?
Lakers in 6. think the Lakers are just much better than the Clippers. And I think that Kawhi is not good enough to like make the Clippers actually win. They're barely better than the Nuggets, and they were legitimately threatened by the Mavericks. I don't think that they can handle the Lakers.
Everyone's been saying this is going to be a 7 game series, but honestly, I have to agree with you. The Mavs should have knocked out the Clippers if Kristaps was still healthy. The Nuggets are forced a game 6 on them. Like the Lakers are just they've won 4 in a row in both of their series. They've just dropped game 1, so they basically have swept both of their matchups, and the Clippers have been pushed by both of theirs. So I honestly don't think it's going to be a 7 game series. I also have Lakers in 6, and
Yes.
the Lakers are going all the way.
See, let's use transitive property here. You saw in the bubble the Rockets were better than the Mavericks. You know that for sure. The Lakers completely manhandled the Rockets, and the Clippers could barely take out the Mavericks. I think that it's pretty clear that the Lakers are better than the Clippers.
Unless Anthony Davis like stops being aggressive like he has been in this Rocket series, or Paul George just suddenly goes off, I can't see the Clippers. It's just gonna be Kawhi and friends for the Clippers, because the Nuggets don't have the wing defenders to throw at Paul George, but the Lakers, they aren't like, I don't know how good they are defensively, but they do have like Caruso, they have KCP who is a decent defender. They have Danny Green, his 3-point shooting's been bad, but he still is a 3-and-D player at the end of the day. So I think the Lakers will be able to, and if they have to, they could put LeBron on Paul George. So I think they have a lot of weapons.
Yeah, I think the only scenario you see the Clippers beat the Lakers is if the Lakers play bad.
Yeah, they just like choke.
If the Lakers lose, it's not because the Clippers played well. It's because the Lakers played bad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is the Lakers series to lose. But what about the Eastern Conference Finals? I think this is actually pretty interesting between Celtics and Heat. I would have, as a person supporting the Heat for this playoff run, I would have much rather seen the Raptors beat the Celtics. But this series is gonna be interesting.
Celtics are great. I've been saying the Celtics are going to take out the Heat for sure. I think that they're just better matchup wise. I mean, I've been saying this to everybody. Nobody really believes it. Just like match up the Celtics and the Heat. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are the only advantages that they have, and then the Celtics are just better regardless. And the Celtics have really good players just throughout the lineup, even though they're only like 6 deep. Honestly, they're gonna get Hayward back at some point, and they're just too good.
Well, I just don't know how like the Heat having a week off is gonna affect them. They're either gonna be very well rested and come out strong, or they're gonna be completely rusty and like brick a lot. But I think the Heat should be able to take at least one of the first 2 games, and it depends on when Hayward comes back. But I think the Heat aren't like they still have a chance. I can see them winning. I think the Celtics have the edge, but overall, I really like the Heat. They have wing defenders that they didn't have in the regular season against the Celtics. They have like Crowder and Iggy now as Crowder as a 3-and-D player, and Iggy as quick. He has really quick hands. He can be put on Tatum and Brown. I think he can get stops on them for sure. They also have Dragic, who can, I think he can take advantage of Kemba in terms of offensively, and they have Hero is one of the most like confident 3-point shooters I've seen in my life. He has so much swagger. Even if he's in Game 4 against the Bucks when he was struggling, he came out and hit 3 clutch threes despite a terrible offensive game. He has that confidence to take big shots, and I think Duncan Robinson right now is the best 3-point shooter that doesn't live in Golden State.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Both teams have their offensive and defensive weapons. I think, yeah, like Alan said, I can't see the Heat taking the series, but the Celtics do have the upper hand in terms of roster.
Are you scared of Kelly Olynyk, Kyron? Do you remember Kelly Olynyk's 3-point shooting on the Celtics?
Yeah, he was really great, especially in that one Wizard season. But I mean, I think Tice can guard him or something. It doesn't really matter. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, that's all you need. They're just so good, and their offense is so great. They're young. They can play lots of minutes, and they won't get winded. They're just a really athletic team.
Yeah, I really like the Celtics team. Like, if I was a GM and I had the Celtics, I would be so happy because you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are 2 amazing wing players that can both like score and play defense. So.
But you can't complain about the Heat's roster either. They're really well built. They have solid players at every single position also. But do you know when Hayward is gonna come back by like which game?
They're saying like Game 4-ish, Game 3, Game 4.
I mean, if he comes back in Game 3, hopefully like the Heat aren't up 2-0 or something already, because then you have to incorporate Hayward also into the offense, and he could be rusty. I don't know how like he's been, but he could be rusty, and if you have to incorporate another wing in that's rusty, they either have to take him out like quickly and let Brown and Tatum do it, or if Hayward is good, then that could bring them back in the series. But I think the Celtics should at least win one of game 1 or 2 to keep the series tied when Hayward comes back.
He'll most definitely be very rusty, but it's fine. I think he should come off the bench.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Gordon Hayward because his career, like I think when you think of Gordon Hayward, you don't think about his Pacer days, you don't think about how good he is, but you really think about how bad his ankle injuries are. Like back on the Pacers, he got injured in that really gruesome injury he had last
On the
year.
Pacers?
I don't remember how he got injured on the Pacers.
Against the Cavs? He got injured against the Cavs.
Yeah, that first quarter he broke his ankle.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
I wonder how these players are gonna be remembered in the future. Like obviously we know these like Jimmy Butler, Paul George, Gordon Hayward, like solid. They were all-star wings. I wonder like if they're gonna be remembered throughout history. I don't think Hayward will, but I wonder about Paul George and Butler.
Maybe Butler if he has some playoff success this year.
Do you think if the Heat do win the championship, just theoretically, do you think Butler is a top 10 player?
He do win the championship. Top 10 player in the NBA?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he already is a top 10 player in the NBA.
Really?
He's not like over like 9, but he's definitely a top 10 player.
Well, I think so. I'm just gonna name people, okay? You wanna name people right now?
I'll tell you everybody who's better than Paul George. When healthy, of course.
No, I'm gonna name like my 10. You tell me if like they're over anyone, okay?
Okay.
So LeBron, KD, Harden, Kawhi, and Curry are the top 5. He's not better than them for sure. Anthony Davis, Antetokounmpo,
Mhm.
Dame, Doncic,
He's better than Doncic.
Jokic,
He's better than Jokic.
Embiid.
He's better than Embiid.
Okay, then I guess you could give him the top 10.
Yeah. Or maybe he's worse than Doncic, but he's definitely better than Jokic.
Yeah, I could see that because I didn't see Jokic lead that type of team either.
Yeah.
The Nuggets are down 16 right now at halftime. I guess it's over for them.
I mean, they were down last game too.
Yeah, but come on now. They're down 3-2. There's no way Kawhi's going to let the Clippers. I mean, wait, they did come back down 16 last game, but they're not going to do it again, I don't think.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? On NBA.com, it still lists Lakers Rockets Game 6 tomorrow, even though the Rockets aren't even in the playoffs right now.
Oh, no. That's sad.
But, so you guys want to, so we've went through the 2 conferences. I guess we all think it's going to be Lakers versus most likely Celtics, maybe Heat. So, so I think Lakers will destroy the Celtics, to be honest. I think it'll be in 5 probably.
Nah, Lakers in 7. Celtics, I think that the Lakers, honestly, there's no one team that's really that great this year. I think that's why I thought that it was the Rockets year. I don't think the Lakers are that great, honestly. I think that the Lakers would be absolutely destroyed by either.
You think the Celtics are as good as the Clippers?
Yeah. I think that the 2019 Raptors, 2018 Warriors, 2018 Cavs, basically the Warriors and Cavs from the previous 5 years as well, would have all been by far and away the best team in the NBA this year. The Lakers aren't that great, and I think they're the de facto best team. Obviously, we saw the Bucks choked, and then the Clippers also aren't that great. Barely beat the Mavericks and are barely beating the Nuggets here. I think that it just shows that the NBA is not really that great this year.
Well, I think this playoff has been good with no home court advantage and no travels. I think lower seeded teams have a much less disadvantage than they do in previous seasons where they have to go. I don't think the Bucks would have dropped game 1 and 2 if they were at home against the Heat.
Yeah. Obviously that is true.
Kyron, do you think I already asked Kerman this earlier, but do you think Westbrook is a top 20 player right now?
Nah, he's like a bottom 10 player, honestly. He sucks. I hate him so much. He's all jokes aside, he's not top 20. He's not really great for any team.
What if D'Antoni goes to the Sixers? I think that would be interesting.
D'Antoni goes to Sixers. Oh, he's probably going to go to the Sixers, and I think that he'll ruin that team too. How is Ben Simmons going to play 7 seconds or less, 3-and-D.
If Mike D'Antoni goes at 76ers, I think we might actually start seeing Ben Simmons take threes during games.
I mean,
Yeah.
Brett Brown has publicly challenged Simmons to take threes, and then he still doesn't. I don't think he respected Brett Brown, to be honest, because Brett Brown consistently said to the media, "I want Simmons to take threes. I want Simmons to take threes," and he never did. D'Antoni might be able to, but it doesn't look like it seems like Simmons is stubbornly like refusing to shoot
Wait,
threes.
why is the NBA playing the Clippers Nuggets game now?
I actually don't know. Maybe they just
That's
play.
so stupid.
Oh, I think it's because it's NFL Sunday, right? It's like the
Oh yeah, it is.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
That's
so
tough. They should have just waited for Monday, honestly.
I mean, but they only get a one. They're only supposed to have a 1 day break, so
Yeah.
um. So what are your overall thoughts on House? Do you think he still has a career in like? I don't think he has a career in with the Rockets anymore.
I don't think he has a marriage. But yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, the Rockets should take him back, I think. But how do you just act so recklessly? Like it's
You know,
so
Tyson
bad.
Chandler tried to take the fall. Tyson
Mhm.
Chandler tried to say it was him and not House.
Oh, really? That's so
Yeah.
funny. Oh my god, he should have done that.
That's why both of them didn't play Game 4 because they were both under investigation.
hmm Wow. Oh my God.
Daniel House has played very well in the playoffs, though, compared to last year.
Dude, last year
Mhm.
he disappeared.
Yeah.
hmm
You know, if LeBron was a franchise, like he was his own franchise right now, he'd be 10th in all-time wins.
Yeah, playoff wins. I saw that.
That's LeBron
That's
is so
insane.
crazy. It's gonna be sad the day LeBron retires.
Yeah, it's gonna be sad when a lot of these superstars retire.
Hello.
Let's just play like a. Remember the game that we were gonna play last week? Top 10 shooters in the NBA right now. We're gonna just do top 5.
Top 5. All right.
I think Curry, Clay, and Duncan Robinson are the top 3.
Top 3. Would you put Chris Middleton anywhere on there because of his recent season?
I mean, I don't think he's a top 5 shooter, regardless of what happened in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Middleton has the efficiency, but I think he kind of has the volume, but I don't think you really see him as that like spot up shooter guy you see with Clay and Steph and Duncan.
Would you give JJ Redick a nod? I think he might have to give JJ Redick.
JJ Redick, definitely. Yeah, I watch a lot of his games. Yeah, it's insane how like he's a 6-footer and he's putting up those shots against people who are so much bigger than them.
You know, it's crazy. Like, you know, on one of those series was the Clippers Spurs. Kawhi was guarding JJ Redick because of his.
Really?
Yeah, Kawhi was
Wow.
guarding JJ Redick because of how dangerous he was from shooting. It's just kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, imagine if JJ Redick had like Harden's body or like LeBron's body.
You just
And
have to
how
think about how
insane he would
crazy it
be.
is, how talented NBA players are. Like Jamal Murray can just blow by Kawhi. Like imagine being able to like know that you can just drive by Kawhi Leonard.
hmm Yeah.
That's insane. That's insane to me.
What else do you guys want to talk about? Anything else?
Finals predictions. Who do y'all think's gonna win and how many games?
I still think the Lakers can destroy the Celtics. To be honest, maybe 6, but I think it'll be 5.
hmm
Yeah, I think Lakers in 5 against Heat or Celtics.
Yeah, I think Lakers in 7.
You know, it's crazy that the Lakers haven't made the playoffs in like 10 years, and they still secured the conference final spot before the Clippers did.
What did you say?
The Lakers haven't been in the playoffs in 10 years, and they still secured a conference finals spot before the Clippers ever did.
Oh my god.
That's honestly so sad.
hmm
Okay, so you guys want to talk about anything else, or should we end it here?
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to our 5th episode of Love Ball. We're gonna keep on going, at least for the rest of the playoffs, and we'll see what happens in the off season. But yeah, get ready for the analysis of the conference finals and finals soon.
Finals predictions. Yeah.
See you guys.